Hey yo, the rain was steady pouring, heard the drops of drizzle meant to be. Chilling in my crib, no doubt, peep the scenery. Telephone rang, then it stopped before I could answer it. I heard it knock at the door, so I answered it. And with Jermaine, he had a little situation. Beef up on the block, and orthodox to led the confrontation. He said these cats be acting hard on the block, and they be pumping weight and holding, so Dwayne got shot. Now see, Dwayne was just a knucklehead, but still with his cousin. And
what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another fantastic video here. You guessed it, in the garage, again, working on the Supra. Today is a pretty sweet video. I'm pretty excited to do this one. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a long time now, and that is an oil cooler. Now, my Supra is considered the base model Supra, so didn't come with the spoiler, didn't have a spoiler on it at all. Okay, it's just the regular flat hatchback, and it had the different tail lights. Again, this was an 88, an 87, so it didn't have the different style tail lights, all that stuff on it, but anyways. It did not come with an oil cooler from factory. Now, I know that some of the 7M GE-Ts, some of the 7M GEs, you guys may correct me on that, came with the oil cooler. I'm thinking it was mostly the GTE came with the oil cooler to help with the turbo and all that stuff. So again, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know enough about it. But again, my car did not come with that. So I reached out to a company called Evil Energy. You guys have probably seen them. They've got a bunch of different AN fittings, hoses, oil coolers, oil catch cans, all sorts of different things. Primarily hoses and fittings, AN fittings. So they got some PTFE stuff as well. I have a lot of their fittings on my car already. I've had no issues with them whatsoever. And I just said, hey, what do you guys recommend as far as an oil cooler goes? My plan from the get-go was to always buy an Evil Energy oil cooler. I've seen pretty good things about them. Not silly expensive. Some people will say, well, you need to spend a little bit more money for the better quality, whatever it may be. I know the quality because I've been running their fittings for a long time on the car with no issues at all. Now, you guys have probably seen that I run a lot of the Evil Energy stuff already in my car. So fitting there. All the nylon braided hoses are all Evil Energy. Fitting there. Up on the fuel pressure regulator. Over the valve covers. For my catch can. Again, all Evil Energy. The only fitting that's not is this one. You can see a little bit of a difference. That would be a no-name brand fitting compared to an Evil Energy fitting where they have not faded. Now, I do get that this is right over the top of the turbocharger, so there's a lot of heat and stuff here, but I've also have their fittings for the oil return. It's hard to see, but they are not faded like that one. So with that being said, I figured the quality is good enough. Let's try it with an oil cooler. I'm gonna watch it very closely, okay? Just make sure, like I would any part. It's not just because, you know, it's not some other name brand part. This is a pretty crucial part of the vehicle, because if you get any oil leaks or obstruction or whatever it may be, you're talking about your oil feed. So you're gonna have some problems here. I reached out to them and I said, hey, what one would you recommend? And they sent me a link. I'll put that link in the description so you guys are using the same exact one that I'm gonna show today. And I said, sick, let's go ahead and order it up, let's get it. And then I asked, what are you guys' thoughts on doing an install and review video? And they said, we love it, let's do it. So they ended up sending me the oil cooler to test out, to review, and show you guys, and hopefully if you guys are interested, you would want to buy one as well. So that being said, if you guys want anything Evil Energy related, that is nylon braided hoses, that is fittings, again, oil cooler, oil catch can, fuel cell, fuel pump, fuel filters, whatever you guys want. If you hop onto their website, again, I'll put the link in the description below, and use MB10 in the little discount code, and you guys will save 10%, which is pretty cool. So that'll be on anything. 10% on if you just need a 90-degree -10 AN fitting. You're like, that's what I need. I just need one, whatever. Don't forget to use MB10 on checkout and save some money there, which is pretty cool. And huge shout out to Evil Energy. They've been super awesome to work with. The support's been awesome, and I've had constant communication with them, and they've been great. So, and again, like I just showed you the fittings. I got the cartoon. It's running great. I've had no issues at all with any of the fittings leaking. All the fittings on my car have been tested with fuel, oil, and even boost, and all of them have had no problems. So again, I think they're a pretty decent product. I would recommend them to anyone else, and I will continue to use their product. It's pretty decent stuff. This is the oil cooler that they sent me. So this is kind of a universal kit. These lines are going to be a little too long for where I'm mounting it, which is fine. I can cut that stuff down, not a huge deal. But I'm going to go through and just kind of show you guys really quick the quality of the fittings. So the anodizing on the fittings look awesome. I don't see any problems with them. They don't look cheap. The anodizing looks pretty decent. And again, you know, we could compare it to a name brand fitting or something that would be more commonly used or whatever it may be, and they look almost identical. If you had those in a box with name brand parts, like you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So the first thing I look at on a lot of this stuff when I first buy things and test out new products and new manufacturers, I look at the quality of the anodizing. I look at the thread inside there, if the threads are not great, you know, the swiveling on the fittings, everything, whatever. I check all that stuff before I put it on my car just to make sure that we're not going to have any issues. And so far, everything looks awesome. Again, these are the same nylon braided hoses that I've got on my car already. I've got a box actually right here with the hoses, and this is the Dash 6 stuff. So this is what's on my fuel stuff right now. And again, quality's, it's pretty decent. I mean, it's hard to tell from camera, but I have their hoses right here on the catch can running up and over this hot portion of the downpipe, and I have had no melting, I've had no leaking. All this stuff is solid, and you don't see any leaking around the bottoms of the fittings there. No leaking on the catch can here. This is the wastegate up pipe, dump pipe, whatever you want to call that, coming out of the hood here. And there's a lot of heat going through this. There's also a lot of heat going through the downpipe right here. And you can see my oil catch can lines are right here. Now I know some of you guys are going to say, well, that's not ideal because there's oil in that and it's hot, and I get that. You guys can see here, I have enough confidence to run this up over. I mean, it's not touching the downpipe, but it's pretty, you know, it's relatively close, and it's close to this right here. There's definitely some heat here, you know, and I can show you right now that none of this stuff has melted, it has worn down, everything looks great. The hoses are still very, very pliable. You know, they're not cracked and they're not breaking. Everything else here, you know, we're talking, there's a crap ton of fuel that goes through this line right here. So, I mean, I've peaked it out with a fuel pressure regulator. It's a Walbro 450 in-tank fuel pump, so that's going to be pushing a high volume of fuel, and that stuff has never leaked. I've never seen any fuel dripping out of any of that stuff on the bottom here. So again, guys, I'm sharing this with you because it's a product that has worked for me, and I'm sure some of you guys out there have used their product. You can actually hop on their website, and again, use my code, save some money, get yourself a pretty decent product, and you'll be on your way. Okay, so right off the bat with this guy, the fins and everything look great on the oil cooler itself. It's just a kind of a standard oil cooler. There is one of the mounting brackets missing here, and you can see I drilled the hole bigger in that one because I've actually already mocked this up in a spot where I thought it would be the best for my application. But yes, you guys will get all 4 of the brackets. It's not gonna be missing one random bracket, and you know, everything else looks great on it. It's pretty light, and powder coating on it's pretty good. I mean, everything looks pretty decent. So I'm happy with it. I'm definitely confident in using this product in my car. Not worried about it one bit. You get a couple of the hose keepers. These just go around the hose to kind of tie them together, which is kind of cool. This is your oil sandwich adapter plate, and it looks pretty good, and you can see the machine work in it. You know, the anodizing looks pretty good. I've got full confidence the thing's going to be just fine. So you get your O-rings, you get some of the plugs for doing like sensors. So if you want to be like an oil pressure sensor, oil temp sensor, whatever you want, you've got a couple ports on there, which is pretty cool. And then it comes with the Dash 10 fittings already in there to correspond with these fittings here. Then you also get the adapters. They're inside here. We'll get to that here in a second. These are the adapters to work with pretty much any car, and that's what goes through the center of this hole here, and it's going to screw onto the engine side, and that's what holds this in place. And then your oil filter obviously screws onto that, and you're good to go. Okay, now let's get to the install. Should be pretty straightforward. I'm going to just back the car out a little bit. I already took the bumper off. Again, bumper super straightforward to take off. You've got like 5 nuts across the top, a couple support bolts on either side, and you got 2 little brackets that kind of hold in place. So hopefully you guys are familiar with taking your bumper off. I'm not going to do a tutorial on how to take your bumper off. The one thing that I am going to do as well is take off the crash bar, and you will have these bolts that are going to go through basically the chassis of the car, the frame rails, whatever. That's going to hold your main crash support bar in place, and that, it's just over there. I pull all that stuff off just so I could get up in that area. You'll see here in a second. A lot easier to mount this stuff up. Now what I did for the mounting brackets is I used these aluminum rods. It's 1/4 by 36 inch aluminum rod, and then what I did is I did 1/4 taps or 1/4 thread on each end of the different brackets that I made, so I could actually through bolt it and use pre-existing holes in my car instead of drilling new holes, which I just don't love doing. So I kind of looked to see where some of those positions were and what the holes were looking like, and I was able to just bend up some of the brackets, the rods, whatever, and threaded them, and then I've through bolted everything with nuts. So, and it worked pretty good. Thing's pretty solid. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the car really quick, and you guys will see where I'm going to put this thing, get it mounted up, hurry and throw that oil sandwich adapter plate on there, and pretty much done. Okay, so you can see I got the bumper off. That's where the crash bar goes, there and there. And then you've got just the one bolt, basically through bolts here. So you take those off and then the whole crash bar just slides out. So it might be a little hard at first to take the crash bar off. If these have been in for a long time or it's been inside the frame rails for a while, you might have to pull on it a little bit harder to get that thing to come out. So the point of interest here, where we're going to be mounting this thing up, is going to be in this spot right here. So I know there's not a ton of airflow in this spot, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set it up on its side, and then the oil cooler is going to sit at an angle kind of like this. And again, I've already mocked it up and it looks great so far. Okay, and then you can see there's one rod right there. That's one that I bent. Basically, it's just like a 45. It comes out of that hole, which is already there. So it's basically 45 that comes up, and then it's got a 90 that comes this way to bolt into the top bracket. And you can see the other one right here, and that one is just a straight rod all the way through. And there's a hole right there, and I'll show you guys all these. And then I'm going to use this hole right here. That hole's already there, but I had to drill it a little bit bigger, and that was the only thing that I really had to kind of mess with. So, all right, since I'm kind of a one-man wrecking crew here, I'm just kind of set it in there. You can see there's the one rod, there's the other one, and it comes through, and it's through bolted right there. So obviously it's just hanging right there now. Again, it's hard to multitask here, but you can see that rod now supports the top of this here, and I've got this guy right here, and that's going to go on that bottom bracket and then into that spot up there. I'll get it done. I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so you guys can see it fits in just fine. Now, the reason I angled it down is because the headlights. I run the headlights up and down. You know, I was originally going to put the oil cooler just upright, have the fittings come off the top of it, but there really wasn't a ton of room to do that with keeping the pop-ups, you know, being able to articulate back and forth or up and down, and then keeping the crash bar with those sweet yellow fog lights that I got. I did not want to take the fog lights off to run an oil cooler. Now, priorities, I know. Some people would say it'd be worth it just to pull the fog light out. Yeah, I wanted to keep my fog lights. So since the angle of attack is quite a bit, the back of the fog light housing doesn't even touch it. I can't remember because I've had this car for so long and I know I've yanked a lot of stuff out of this car, like a lot of stuff. There's no longer like an AC condenser, there's no AC pump, there's no nothing. I've ripped everything out. I can't remember for sure if there's anything in that spot. I don't know. I don't think there is. I think it's just an open void there. It's a good place to mount this thing up. The other side, the driver's side, I'll show you here, is a lot the same. So I've got my boxes for my HIDs for the headlights and just some miscellaneous wire in there that I still need to kind of tuck up. But there's nothing really in there. And now I can hear it already. That oil cooler is not going to get any airflow. I know. It's better than nothing, really, with this car not having an oil cooler and with running more boost and running a turbo. This car wasn't ever made to run a turbo, but running a turbo, getting a lot of heat going through that turbo, the oil's going to heat up. Anything's going to be better than having nothing at all. So what I plan on doing where it's sitting now, since it's got that angle on it, what I'm thinking about doing is putting like an aluminum shroud on either side of the oil cooler, so I can actually utilize the sweet holes in the bumper lip, and that might scoop up the air and push that into the oil cooler. Now, the air's gonna get kind of turbulent in there. There's not a ton of room to get good airflow moving through that, unless I were to bolt it right to the front of the intercooler, which it's not my style. They look really good, don't get me wrong, but I don't love that oil cooler sitting in front of the intercooler. I love seeing just big fat intercooler in there. I thought about putting it up in the upper air dam, because since it's the pre-89, I've got the full opening in the top. There just wasn't enough room to mount anything up there without having to cut a bunch of stuff apart. So I wanted to leave everything kind of how it was, intact, kind of factory, and, you know, mount this thing in and make it make it look good. So there's some things I can do, some ducting and things that I can do to make it work just fine. So we'll see. All right, now you can see it a lot better. Sitting up in there, looks pretty good from the front. You can see it sits perfect between the frame rail and just the outside. Now you can see this part of the car right here. That's how much room you have to work with there, but I just thought that looked the best. And now you can see why I cut that one off. It would have run into this right here and it would push the oil cooler out, but you can see it's pretty solid. That ain't going anywhere. All right, it's the next day, and the last thing that we need to do is throw the oil sandwich adapter plate on there. Now, one thing that I realized is the adapter plate is going to be flush against the block, basically flush against the block. And the problem that I see with this and with the other side of the fittings, they are straight ends. I'm thinking kind of the problem that we're going to see here is trying to get the hose to basically screw onto those fittings and then come back around. So what I might do is the plates on here, the straight fitting's going to come down, the hose is going to have to go up and over. So as long as it doesn't kink, it should be fine. I've reached out to Evil Energy. They're going to send me 2 -10 90s, and that should come off the adapter plate. And then to the new lines, I'll just have to remake the lines or just pull the fittings off and put the new ones on. All right, we're a couple days later since that last clip, and I'll show you why. Now, nothing at fault with Evil Energy. They just supply you with a very universal kit, and on the ends of the line are just the straights. So the problem that you're gonna see is there's just not enough room in the engine bay. It's more like this universal kit's made for a ton of different applications, and I went into it knowing that I'd probably have to mess with some of that stuff. So I wasn't super surprised when I was like, okay, it doesn't fit, but I know what I need to do. All right, down here in the engine bay, you can see there's kind of a lot going on, but there is the oil sandwich adapter. You can see it's on, okay? Oil filter screwed on. And right here are 2 -10 90s that come off of the 2 fittings that came on the plate. I'm gonna hurry and pull it off and I'll show you what it looks like. Here it is, there's the O-rings, everything's intact. So if you don't use these, there's no room for this sandwich adapter to go on, plus, you know, the oil filter. Back over here, you can see there's kind of a lot going on. So there's a plate right there and your oil pressure sending unit, and there's like a little contour piece on the block right there, probably like an oil galley or something. If you move this plate around and you're trying to utilize these fittings, there's no way for them to basically get onto that plate with just the straight fittings. I even tried to kind of bend the hose a little bit to try to get them to loop up and around. The best way for the straight ones to work, these ones, would be if the plate was pointing down, but you can't because you got that plate right there that's sticking out. The best solution right here, you got plenty of room. These things swivel back and forth, so you can pretty much point them any which way you want. Again, these are from Evil Energy. I hit them up and I just said, hey, I got a better idea for this side of it. I need 2 1090s, and they sent them right away, no problem. And there they are. And again, guys, they look awesome. They don't feel cheap. They look like they're gonna do the job. We'll pull this off right here. You guys can see the knurl, or the end that's gonna actually go inside the hose, which we're gonna have to cut here because the hoses are obviously pretty long, but you can see the quality of the fittings look pretty decent. The threaded pieces, you know, the ends look good. The anodizing is not scratched. And yeah, they look pretty nice. I've run these on my car, okay? All the oil, fuel, boost, they're all going through Evil Energy fittings right now, and I've had no problems. I've tried a ton of different fittings throughout the years. I've used different brands. I'm not going to name them, but I've used different brands that the anodizing scratched super easily on them. I had ones that didn't fit up to the opposing fitting, so they didn't seal properly, and they leaked. So I'm just telling you guys right now, with my own personal experience, these fittings are great. They work just fine. The anodizing's good. The quality's good. They stay pretty clean, and again, I've had no problems. So if you guys are wanting to get this kit, I've already said it before, if you want this exact kit, again, I'll put the link in the description below. Just use my discount code MB10 when you purchase this, save 10%, and you guys can have the same exact setup. And then I would throw on there those 2 -1090s if you're doing this on a 7M GE. On a GTE, they've got the little remote oil cooler thing that kind of sticks off the end, and you probably don't need those, but it's not bad to have extra fittings because you just don't know what you're going to run into. and I've got bags of fittings here because I've changed stuff out and I've adapted things better to work and flow better on the car. So again, it's not a bad thing to have, and the fittings are relatively inexpensive. So again, just grab what you need and you guys won't be disappointed. All right, now that we got this set, so again, this is the one you're gonna wanna use, and for the oil filter for the Supra, it is gonna be the 3/4 by 16. That's the thread pitch on this side, and then this will just screw obviously into the engine side. That will go through there. You're gonna wanna tighten this guy down, and then your oil filter goes on top, and it sits something like that on there, okay? Now, I've got these pointed somewhat in the area that I need them pointed. I'm gonna have to tighten these guys up before I put the plate back on, and then I obviously have to put the hoses on here before, because I can't really get a wrench on or next to the engine block to tighten these down. So I've got to do everything outside of the car, including these lines, and then I'll have to kind of fish everything through and put it in, and it should be good to go. If you guys haven't seen how to do the fittings for the hoses, like putting these on here, so you guys can see there's kind of the male end that's going to actually plug inside the female end of the nylon braided hose. This little guy is going to go onto the end of the nylon braided hose, and then that threads onto this. As you thread it down, it tapers, and that's what makes your seal on the hose. You shouldn't need to use any RTV, any Permatex, nothing. You shouldn't need to use anything on these fittings. They basically self-seal. As you tighten them down, you shouldn't have to worry about that stuff leaking. If they are leaking, you either didn't get the hose on all the way and it will push up. It's kind of hard to see on this, but there's actually a little lip inside that fitting. The hose will bump right up to that lip, and you know it's on all the way, and then you just tighten it down and you're good to go. So I'll show you guys how to do that. I'm not going to do a video on both of them. I'll just show you the one side. I'll do that for both. You guys are not going to love how I cut the hose. The best thing would be to have the cutters for AN hoses, just to go in there, cut them, whatever. I use electrical tape, and then I use a hacksaw, and I actually cut right down the middle of the electrical tape. That way it keeps everything from fraying. Then you put, you push all the nylon or the stainless steel braided stuff into this, and then you push it down tight. Make sure you got all the threads and everything in there, and that the hose is nice and secure. So now when I'm assembling the hose, I like to use the same oil that I'm using inside the engine. That way it's going to wash it through any other weird stuff in there. Okay, I'm not putting like grease or whatever, and it's going to go inside the engine, inside the oil pan. I'm not going to do that. So enough about that. We're going to go ahead and assemble the lines. I'm going to cut them down to the length that I need, or mark them, pull them off, cut them down to the length I need, and then assemble these lines, put it all back together, tighten the fittings on the sandwich adapter, throw it back in the car, tighten everything down, and then should be able to fire it up. And that should be it. So it is an easy assembly. It is an easy process to go through this, but you do need to have those extra fittings if you're doing this to a 7M GE. Anyways, I'm rambling. Let's get to it. Okay, got the lines pulled back off again, so this is where we need to cut. I'm not going to worry about taking these off because we're no longer going to need these. We got the new fittings. So there's my electrical tape. I'm just going to cut right in the middle of those, and then I've got a pair of tin snips that'll go in and kind of just trim everything up, and then I'll clean them very well before I put them back on. Now we're going to take this end here, and we're going to kind of feed it in like this and kind of just muscle it in there. I like to kind of just run it back and forth. And then what I'll do, and there's tools for this by the way guys, but since we're here in my garage, I don't really care. I will take the end once I get it started like this, and on this nice mat, I'll push it straight down. And kind of walk it back and forth. All right, then on the inside, you can see the rubber inside there is butt up to the bottom lip of the fitting there. We're gonna clean that now, and then you'll see that the corresponding side of the other fitting, we'll just push inside here and then we'll tighten them down. You can buy these like aluminum, basically like blocks that go inside your vise like this. I like to use this little Irwin vise here. It's simple for what I'm doing. And because I don't have the block, I want to protect all of my fittings. So I go and I wrap electrical tape around the fitting. Just want to keep that anodizing from scratching. Just give it a little bit of a twist there. Okay, just to hold it in place. You can see it's just sitting inside the vise right here. It's just tight. It's not smashing it down. I've got oil on this other one. Again, it's just that regular engine oil. You're gonna push this fitting into here. Just slowly start to turn it. Okay, so we've got a couple threads started in there. I'm just going to turn this guy like this because obviously the 90 is not going to work here. And I'm gonna give myself just a little bit more working room here because we're gonna start to run into the vise right here. But it's already in there. I'm just gonna turn it by hand. I'm just gonna watch to make sure it's not pushing the hose out. It will get to a point where so now it's starting to spin, sitting stationary, and I can turn this. Now I wanna put my pliers on there. And again, I would recommend these ones. These are from Evil Energy as well. I bought these a long time ago. You can see they've been used quite a bit, but I do recommend the crescent wrench style, able to use it for more than one size. And then this part, I'd be a little bit delicate just because you don't want to scratch all this stuff. And I would just work it around carefully. So you want your fittings to look nice by the time you're done with all this stuff and the assembly and whatnot. If you're gonna rush it, you know, you're gonna run risk of scratching some stuff. And pull the tape off now. All right, there you have it. Slow and steady wins the race. You guys can see there's no scratches on there. The fittings all together. These all line up pretty dang close. Pretty happy about that. No scratches. If anything, there's some marks from my wrench. But you see on the vise side, no scratches on there. So tape up the fitting before you do that. Tape it up really well. And then you can see it's on there. And it's going to be nice and sealed. No problems. And there you go. We go ahead and do the other line over there and throw it all back together. Cool. Now we got this in. You can see there's the lines. There's the two fittings. They go right between the turbo coolant line. So that's just the line coming off the back of the thermostat housing. Going to one side of the turbo. That's the line to the other side. And they run right between that and the charge pipe. You can see it's in there. Oil filter's on. All the fittings are on. They're nice and tight. Okay. And then the lines all come through here and go through that hole right there. You guys can see that a little bit better now. And there they are. So there's the two there. Now the way I did this oil cooler is I have a little bit of play to get the fittings on. So there's the bottom one there, top one there. So I can actually move this a little bit as I put the fittings on, get them all tightened down, and then I can push this back up, and you can see there's the nut for that. It just bolts back into this section here, and that way I have access to all this stuff. You can see I made it this way. It's pretty tight against the frame here, but I didn't want this stuff kind of floating out in the breeze. So not a huge deal. Can tighten them down, have full access. I had to move the intercooler piping out of the way just so I could get to this stuff. And I'll get those put on, tightened down, and that's it. Okay, and there's the final product. Oil sandwich adapters in there, oil filter. The lines come up through here like you guys saw in the last one, through down to the oil cooler. Both lines are there, both fittings, and it is nice and close to that. It's not touching, but it is right up to that, which is what I wanted, and it gives me enough room to get the bumper back on. I think I said this before already, but the crash bar on with the fog lights, it clears just fine. And then same thing with this portion of the headlight. When it's closed, it misses the top part of the oil cooler there. So perfect. Okay, and that about wraps it up for the oil cooler install. Hopefully you guys get the gist of it. I know I probably left some stuff out since I'm a one-man camera crew here. It's hard to get all the details. You guys probably saw. Now, I'm not perfect. No one is. Social media does a good job at posting all the good things. But if you guys noticed, when I was putting the oil sandwich adapter on, I didn't realize, but the O-ring fell out. And I got it all buttoned up, and I was putting the oil cooler lines on, and that's when I noticed the O-ring was sitting on the floor. So that was awesome. So off camera, I heard and pulled the oil adapter, oil sandwich, oil filter sandwich, whatever you want to call it, adapter off, threw the O-ring back in, put some new oil on it, threw it back in, bolted it down, and now we're good. So I'm not going to run the car right now. It's pretty late, and I do want to make sure I've got enough oil to make up for the oil cooler, and the lines. That's quite a bit of oil. The cooler's pretty big, the lines are pretty long, and filling everything back up. I just don't have the oil here right now, so I'm not going to do that right now. But I'm going to fill up the motor. Might not be ideal. I'm going to fill the motor up a little more than full, and then I'm actually going to kill the ignition, and I'm just going to crank it over, or not kill the ignition, but like basically kill the fuel, I guess, fuel pump. And I'm going to crank it over, build oil pressure, fill the lines, fill the oil cooler, check the oil level, make sure it's where I want it to be, top it off, do whatever. Then I'm going to hook up the fuel pump, and then I'm going to start it up, let it run, and that way I should have sufficient oil. I don't want to just run it because it's going to suck down a bunch of oil. It's going to fill up the oil cooler and the lines, and I don't want to starve the motor of any oil. So it probably would be ideal to maybe fill the oil cooler up with the lines on, maybe take the lines off the sandwich adapter plate, and funnel or whatever, and fill the lines up with oil. I'm just not gonna do that. I think the way I'm planning on doing it's gonna work just fine. I just don't want to start the engine and have it run with, limited oil because it's now filled up the oil cooler. You guys get it. So that's pretty much it. Again, guys, if you are interested in this oil cooler kit, hop onto their website. I'll put a link in the description. Don't forget to use MB10. It's really 4 buttons. MB10. That's all you gotta do. MB10. If you do that on checkout, 10% you guys will save on your purchase, which is pretty sweet. If you guys are looking to do something for the channel, like you want to support me or whatever, that will help. Okay, they've worked a deal out with me that if you guys buy their product and you use my discount code, it will help me out, which is pretty cool. So I'm not forcing you guys to do it, but if you're going to buy something, you might as well save some money. And as always, you guys are awesome as well. Thanks for commenting, subscribing, liking all the videos, and staying with it. I know the videos, we haven't really had a change of scenery. We've been in the garage a lot. But I know that you guys like these videos. I know you like the installs. I know you like the how-tos because you are trying to figure out your Supras in your garage. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing for you guys. Let me be the guinea pig. I'll try something out. Oil cooler, like I said, I just was like, yeah, sure, that'll work out. Throw it in the car, and we'll see how it works out. If you guys want to see what's going to be on the next video. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's a turbo manifold. See you guys on the next one.